you should have a good merge of people who are wanting to evolve and go from that laggard state. And what we're really looking for are early adopters. And I think that's what we're starting to talk about, these people who embrace the technology or looking for the change. And so I think there will be a lot of change coming from both sides, but it's still going to take some time. Our industry still has a core base that really founded the industry. And over the last 5 years, looking at industry statistics, you're starting to see a tremendous amount of buy sells.
Welcome to the One Gang Worldwide podcast, your ultimate ride into the world of motorcycles. Visit cyclesworldwide.com, where we offer a completely free marketplace for everything motorcycles. Join our One Gang community where you can connect, share info, and swap stories with riders from all over the world. Join for free at cyclesworldwide.com and be a part of the One Gang community right now.
What's up, guys? Today on One Gang, we're diving into the digital side of the powersports world, the technology that keeps dealerships moving and customers connected. Our guest, Justin Quinn, product manager at DX1, one of the industry's leading dealer management and CRM platforms. Justin, thanks for being here, brother. Been excited to hear your journey, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're really excited.
Nice. Justin, we're excited to have you. Just for those listening that can't see Justin's room, he's got all kinds of awesome pictures and history behind him. So I can tell this is going to be a great episode. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to start out with the break the ice round, the icebreaker. It's 10 rapid fire questions, quick answers. Yeah, we'll go ahead and rock and roll when you're ready. Good to go?
Right. Let's go. Let's do it.
All right, cool. First question. If your life had a dashboard like DX1, what would be flashing right now? Low fuel, system update, or full throttle?
Full throttle.
Nice.
Rock on. All right. Question 2. You've gone from motocross tracks to managing software. Which one leaves you with more bruises?
Software.
That's so funny.
All right. What's harder to explain to your family? What a product manager actually does, or why you still love motorcycles after all these years?
Why I still love motorcycles after all these years.
All right. If every dealership had a refresh button like a website, what's the first thing you'd click to fix?
Inventory.
Good
Inventory.
call. Tell us about it. We feel you, man. All right.
Yeah.
What's one dealership job that taught you the most about people, and would you ever do it again?
Yeah, being a sales manager, I've done everything in the dealership, but sales manager, really, you have to get to know people, and 100% I'd do it again. I love working with people.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. If you had to describe the perfect powersports CRM in 3 words, what would they be?
Smarter, not harder.
Ooh,
Nice, man.
that was very.
That was like
can you
on,
use
too,
3
dude.
words.
See, you can tell
Nice.
this guy's smart, man.
All right. What's your go-to riding band when you need to clear your head after a long day?
Ooh, that's a good one. Highly suspect.
Highly suspect.
Right on.
All right. I think that's
Okay.
the
If
first
you
of
could
this
have
one.
dinner, that was the first answer, the first time we got that one. Okay. Here's one that might be a little bit more difficult. If you could have dinner with one person, dead or alive, who are you breaking bread with?
Wow, you almost stumped me on that one. Dead or alive. I love to have a conversation with Marty Smith.
Cool. Right on. Okay. Favorite motorcycle of all time, or one you wish you still had?
Oh, that's an easy one. My 1992 on.
All right, mate.
Right on.
The yellow
Such a
dragon.
sweet bike.
Yeah, that was great, man.
All right, last question. Finally, if DX1 could automatically handle one part of your real life, what would you automate first?
Whew, all my billing, all my accounting.
The financial. It's always that
That's
damn
right.
financial. That's so funny,
Answer.
man.
I feel you.
All
All
right.
right, man. You survived the break the ice round.
All
Great
right.
job.
Awesome, man. Yeah, great job. Funny answers. That was cool. So let's kick off the journey, man. Where'd you grow up? What kind of kid were you? More into sports, tech, or just anything with an engine?
Yeah, I grew up in Central California, Clovis, California. And I was one of those kids. My mom said I came out of the womb caffeinated. I didn't want to be indoors. And yeah, if it had wheels with it, we were organizing bicycle races and
Nice.
in our apartments and anything we could do. And I was a sports kid. Again, any type of program I could compete in. I just wanted to go from one thing to the next thing. So I think it was the competition part that was there early. And then once the two wheels got involved, then it was a marriage.
Did you have a big family? Did you have brothers, sisters?
I have one brother, a younger brother. And that was it for me. We got into it because my dad was into it. Like a lot of people, it comes from having a family member or something. And for us, we lived in apartments, didn't have a lot of money. My parents were a little bit younger. So it was definitely something that you learn to really love too, because it wasn't easy to have.
That's right. Yeah.
Very cool. So you've got motocross in your background and literally in your background as well right now. You even have a picture of yourself on your first ride before you had, or the first ride without training wheels, which is such a cool moment to capture. So what pulled you into the motocross world and what did it teach you early on about competition and discipline?
But yeah, again, I think what pulled me in was my dad. I think for a lot of people at his age, on any Sunday and just the explosion of the sport at the time, again, Marty Smith was his hero, which later became one of my heroes as well growing up. That's really what got me into it in terms of falling in love and just, it was easy to do. Again, getting into it, my dad got me racing some bicycles. Again, we with the progression, I think a lot of people go. So I remember getting on bicycles and then going to race a couple BMX races. But as soon as he could get me on a motorcycle, he had me off the bicycles and on the motorcycle.
How old do you think you were?
I remember it. I got that JR50, the Suzuki JR50 in 79 for my second birthday. And I can't
Man.
remember exactly how
For your
young I
second birthday?
was. Second birthday. Yeah. And our parents like to tell racing stories a bit like fishing stories. So I'm not exactly sure how soon I rode, but I do remember again seeing some pictures and remembering it vaguely. I want to say around 3. And I remember watching my dad to fix the training wheel situation. He went over to his father's house and pulled out of a shed an old wagon, one of those red flyer wagons from back in the 70s, real good quality.
Yeah.
And he took axle and the wheels off of that. And I remember watching him weld it to the bottom of the JR50 frame. It was a total hack job.
Wow.
Rather than, because I had been destroying those little ones you could put on the back of the JR50. Those were for bicycles. They
Right.
were bending. It wasn't working. That's my earliest memory. And he said I had those training wheels for maybe 3 or 4 months at most, and then they were gone. So I think the picture that you see in the back was my first race. That was my 4th birthday, a little bit after that down in Bakersfield. And then that riding photo was somewhere in that year before.
That's killer.
That's incredible. Did you have a spot on your property that you could ride? Could you go into the backyard and rip anything, or did you guys have to travel somewhere to ride?
No, luckily for me in this time, somehow you could still get away with going to a dirt lot in the middle of a city.
Right.
As long as you weren't bugging anybody. But again, no, I mean, it was definitely one of the challenges growing up is we did okay, but it took a lot of money and we lived in a city in apartments. For me, I wasn't your stereotypical where I could go ride a couple days a week and my parents worked hard and round the clock. So no, I didn't really get to grow up with some of those other things you'd love to have, which is just full access to a bike every day, all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Take us a little bit into when you started competing in the motocross side. Take us a little bit through that journey.
Sure. My dad was really into flat track at the time. My dad was taking RM 125s and 250s and turning them into full flat track bikes. And those are some of my earliest memories. And that's where we got into the racing was Bakersfield and some of the other places up and down the Central Valley that had races for that type of stuff. And then as far as really motocross, we had a very famous little track. In fact, the Pipes Motorsport Groups, who has the Supercross team now, they own a track still to this day in Madera, California called Little Okie, which is where many people cut their teeth in Central California for the first time. So I remember riding my 50 out there a little bit. And then that was your Friday night fun stuff. It wasn't competitive, your good community, but it wasn't till I would say I was a little bit more 8 years old into 60s and 80s when we really started racing. Less time riding on the weekends and more time starting to compete.
And that's cool, man, because your dad was into it too. When you have that family support and you guys all share a common thing, it's such a humongous thing. Looking back at those motocross days as you were growing up, what's some of the bigger lessons that still apply in your work life, in your life today?
Sure. I was always taught about checklists. You can always say, even to a point of OCD. Everything about what you do on a motorcycle is about safety in the end. You want to go out and have fun and you want to compete, but you want to do it the next weekend or the next day.
Right.
And when it comes to safety gear, when it comes to your equipment, when it comes to even all the processes you have to get into mentally, whether you're an amateur or a pro, to make sure, hey, I'm going to do something where potentially I'm risking my life and I need to make sure that things are working the way they are. I think that's a lesson. It didn't matter what sport I played, professional job I had. You take the guesswork out of the intangibles and make sure that you're doing what you need to do to be prepared for whatever it is you're doing. So I think for me, it put in that type of commitment that no matter what that event is or what you're doing, most of the work comes before it.
Nice.
Right on. And you mentioned flat track. Serge and I, when we went out to Born Free months ago, we got to see flat track. We went with our buddy Robin, and it was so freaking cool to see in person. Do you still follow it at all?
I do. I don't follow it at being able to catch them live and things like that as much, but I definitely do my best to follow it. It's still at the heart of our sport. And I'd love to. I have a grandson now. I'm excited to get out there and find the closest dirt track to me. My favorite memory, and it's definitely the moment that the light bulb turned on or that your hair stood up or your blood boiled. My
Yeah.
dad took me to the San Jose Mile. They would have it a couple times a year in the series. I think once in the spring and once a little bit closer to the end of the series. And I remember just it being such a big event. And the first thing he did when he walked me in, the very first thing we did is he walked me right up as close as they'd let you get to the fence coming into turn one. Just before they were going to let off the gas, he said, just stand here. And that they were
Yeah.
still in qualifying. And when that first bike came by, just same thing with
Jaw
people who
drop.
love cars or whatever.
Yeah.
And you felt it, you heard it slowly building up, you heard it coming. And then this just moment of physics where it's like, oof,
Yeah.
you know, I do remember that moment going, oh, that's what I have to do.
That's
It
amazing.
doesn't matter what it be, something like that. I have to do that.
That is
Cool.
so awesome because, right, Ben, we're fortunate enough to be able to get people like yourself from all over the world in our show. And everybody has that moment in their life where motorcycles really just changed everything. So that was cool to hear, man. Thanks for letting us sit on that. That was awesome.
Cool.
Definitely. So, Justin, let's move forward a little bit and get into your first jobs and your dealership experience. So, you've been on the dealership side, parts service management, before ever touching the software world. What was that first dealership job like for you?
Yeah. So I can break that up into two parts for a job. My experience, again, not having a lot of money, it was important to have good relationships with local dealerships, sponsorship, anything we could do. And my dad knew a lot of the dealers, like a lot of people did, small community. So he would arrange at times for me to try to go help at the dealership. Even if I got a discount, there was a reason why. It wasn't just because I thought I was fast or that there would be something, because I really wasn't fast. There really, in the true name of sponsorship, wasn't a good reason to give my family a discount other than being loyal and good customers and
Right.
stuff like that. So again, I think my dad was trying to teach me early, especially early, knowing where we were at, that if we were going to succeed in this world and continue to get some of those things that maybe we couldn't afford, it would have to come through other areas again. So I think that was being installed. And I also had a Honda dealership that was right behind my junior high that was in my local town. Right after school, the first thing I did, and it was a 30-second walk from my last class, was to go right there. And they didn't have to pay me. They didn't have to give me anything. I just wanted to hang around the dealership. And of course, I knew a lot of the people who raced and rode. That would be first. And I did. I helped put away parts and bikes and a lot of PDI help cleaning them and detailing them. When it comes to actually working in the dealership, where that's my job, hey, I got to pay some bills, I got to get to where I'm going. And that was at Bob's Honda Yamaha in Memphis, Tennessee. And that would have been in 1998. I was a privateer motocrosser on the East Coast, just getting off the West Coast, trying to do a little bit of different. And so that was my first real job. And I was at the parts counter. So that was my first real experience many moons ago.
That's cool.
Cool, man.
That's cool. So you were trying to do some privateer stuff still in the racing world. That got you out to Tennessee. And that's where it really all kicked off as far as the actual physical job with dealerships. That's interesting, man. So what did working the parts counter or service deck teach you in those early days? Because you were green with that part of it, right? You knew the industry, you knew you loved it, but that's a whole different beast at that time. What kind of things were you learning, and in addition to realizing that this needed help?
Yeah, for me, the biggest realization is there's something other than a motocross bike. Even spending all that time in the dealerships looking at ATVs or street bikes, for me, I walked right past them. It didn't matter if there were any parts and accessories. As somebody who bought stuff or spent time in the dealership being a motocross person, I learned a lot more about machinery. The first time somebody came up from just south of us in Mississippi and was wanting to ask me for some floorboards and all these parts for his rancher, I just really realized what kind of world was there. And it humbled me very quick, feeling like, oh, I can come into this job and I'm going to know what I need to do because I know everything about a two-stroke engine. Very naive to the fact, realizing, at least in Memphis, Tennessee at the time, nobody's really doing much motocross. That's what it really taught me. And again, that teaches you to a little bit of remember when you're going into something new. Stay humble, don't get ahead of yourself, and find your position within your companies. Again, I was young and thought I was just going to walk in and do all this. So yeah, it humbled me very quick.
Yeah. So there's a rhythm to dealerships, the customer rushes, the tech chaos, phone calls nonstop. What did you love most about that environment, and what do you not miss either?
I definitely don't miss the retail grind, if you can call it that. That's the reality of running a retail business. I worked for a couple stores that were open 7 days a week. And in most cases, as my career went on, it was somewhat in some type of management role, depending on the location. And of course, when you're responsible for staffing and managing a retail business, it's tough because things happen and it doesn't matter what's going on. If you're the manager within reason, it's your job to fix. So I definitely don't miss that. The thing I miss the most is working with people. I always enjoyed, especially families. At the time when I was really heavy in the dealerships, I was evolving with my kids. I didn't always have the best of gear. The amount of times I raced and crashed, I probably should have had 50 helmets over 10 years and I had 3. So being able to explain to families who are genuinely in there with no real background about what they're doing, helping them without also beating them over the head, which again
Yeah.
is a tough spot in a retail business, right? We're there to make money. That's the reality of it. But trying to find that nice fine balance between good service, reasonable deal, and then trying to tie them long-term to the business. I really miss that. You can really tell when people appreciate good service, especially when
Yeah.
you're trying to get their children for things like helmets.
For sure.
Being able to help with stuff like that, yeah, it's hard to teach. So I really enjoyed offering those services to customers.
Yeah.
That's fulfilling. You mentioned this before the show, and I just had the thought, you mentioned your kids just now. One of my best friends on the planet, no family history of it, and they just found out they're having identical twins. What advice would you give to a future parent of twins?
The same thing I'd give to every parent: sleep now, start saving more. Yeah.
Sleep and
Yeah.
save, man. That's funny. Was there a moment that when you realized that you wanted to help fix some of the problems that you were seeing? You walked the line throughout the dealership world from the parts counter on into was it store or GM?
Yeah, it was a GM role. We were in Sacramento at the time. There was some expansion going on with the Yamaha store that had been there for many years, Capital Yamaha, and they had a couple owners. So it was evolving as it went in. Originally, I was brought in to be a parts manager of one of the stores, but then we started evolving into managing both stores. We were early on the e-commerce kind of side of things, so there was some avenues there. And then, yeah, eventually worked up as the general manager of the Folsom store for some time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Let's transition into the tech once you got on the road to DX1. So you've made a huge leap from the physical side of motorcycles to the digital side with DX1. How did that opportunity come about?
A good friend of mine had called me right back at the beginning of COVID, back in early 2020, and had said, "Hey, guess what? I bought a Yamaha dealership." And at the time, I had just finished a degree. I'm one of those people that went back to school late to get a degree.
Good for you.
And
Cool.
we were in Oregon at the time. My kids had just graduated high school, so we were empty nesting. And I was doing some consulting. Again, I was finishing school, doing some kind of different odd job stuff, getting ready to go into a different direction. And I said, let me come up there and help you, because I had done some consulting with some dealerships and looking, maybe there's a future there as an owner and things like that. And went up there with him. And in the middle of the process up in Bozeman, Montana, it was doing a great job. We had to switch our software. The software that was currently being used at the time was being sunset by that company. And so we had to evaluate some DMS companies, and it's a story within itself. But at the time, I said to my buddy, I said, hey, I know a company that I was working with many moons ago, and they did software. I said, let me reach out to them and see what they got going. And so I reached out to the founder of the software, who was one who really mentored me during some of the later part of my dealership stuff from the business side. And he said, yeah, take a look at what we got. And we decided to go with the software at the time, and we started onboarding it. And then my wife got offered a job of a lifetime for what she does here in Tennessee. And at the time, unfortunately, I told him, as we were empty nesting, I was looking at doing that. But I really wanted to support my wife. And I was casually conversating with the contact we have. We have account managers here at DX1 that are pretty hands-on in the beginning of the process, and was explaining who was going to take over for me. And they said, after talking with me, I might be a good fit for a product manager job, especially knowing the founder and the history and whatnot. And I applied, interviewed, and in late 2020, October, they hired me, and that's how I got here.
That's cool. Justin, how did you know this was the right path?
I didn't, actually. When I was thinking about what I really wanted to do next, I was actually still making a considerable amount of money as a photographer, of all things, go figure, with sports and racing and things like that. And so I really wasn't sure that's what I wanted to do, especially not having a background and really not knowing what I was getting myself into. But my wife, again, was the one who encouraged me to practice what I preach to her and my family, which is sometimes when it's most uncomfortable, but there's something there, that's the one you do go after, because it's the biggest challenge. It's the one, that might have the most on the line and push you. And so with a little bit of help from her, I embraced it and said, let's do this. And DX1 was great when we were going through the hiring process to talk about that too, approaching this a little bit from, I don't want to say non-traditional, but coming from somebody with no tech for a tech position versus maybe finding somebody with a lot of tech background, but not a lot of knowledge in our industry. And so I think it was a little bit of not a leap, but we knew we had an uphill course to go to see if this would work. But I think from day one, we all saw within the company that this was probably going to work out. And 5 years later, I just had my 5th year anniversary here last month. I can't believe what's happened in 5 years and how much I've learned and grown with the company.
That's
so
awesome,
it's been
man.
really exciting.
That's a great journey, man.
So we've been at the high level. Let's hone into the details a little bit in that first year. Was there a learning curve from managing to then going into product development, or did your dealership experience give you an edge in any way?
It definitely gave me a little bit of an edge in one of the bigger priorities that we have as a product manager, which is trying to assess the needs of the customer. We have a process that allows our customers to submit feedback to us. At the time, the process was a little bit different, but it certainly did, because that was my first task, if you will, is they brought me on board with the company. The company is great about onboarding. It's one of the few companies I've had where you're not necessarily just thrown into the fire right away.
Nice.
This is one of those nice ones to go in and take a look at what the customers are asking for and make a list. And that was good timing, because we do our roadmap planning this time of year. And so I was able to so it was good from that side. What was an uphill battle right away, which was what I think we all were going to know, is how do you take picking the idea and now tell us how the dealer would like it to work? And again, some of it was a little bit low hanging fruit, but again, that was definitely part of the first process where it helped. But from that side, it was a steep learning curve to understand what a scope and a spec is, what technical writing is, and how all that equates to a development team.
Nice. Hey,
Yeah, cool.
For those listening who might not fully understand what exactly DX1 is, how does it make life easier for dealers?
So DX1 is what we call, in short, a DMS, a dealer management system. It's what operates your business. Fundamentally, our software does 3 main tasks. We really assist you with inventory. It's an inventory management system. We assist you with invoicing and retailing. And we also assist you with service department type work. as a core functionality goes. Of course, there's customers and marketing and things that are built in with there. So what it really does is help you scale with your business. A lot of dealers, they may start off small and you can start maybe on some spreadsheets and you have some minimal inventory and things like that. The DMS is really where you can take that next step to really start having things like reporting and business workflows and another professional level when it comes to interacting with your customers. The DMS part of it is really what runs your business. It's what you're going to be staring at on a computer when you're dealing with customers. DX1, we're what we call an end-to-end product. Traditionally, you could say, hey, yeah, there's a DMS provider, and then you also would need a website, and you might also need a CRM or something that's a lead manager, something like that. But that's where DX1 is different. We actually do our own website business as well. It's part of the DX1 branding. We don't have to go work with a third-party company. The same thing with lead management. We have our own product called Traffic Lead Pro, while people refer to it as TLP. Again, so we are a company that's not having to necessarily work with a third party by necessity. We will. Not all our customers necessarily may want to use our website, or maybe they're locked into a contract today that they have to go through. So really what that does is really empower the dealer, because you have a better connection between that brick and mortar and your e-commerce world. And all those tools are really important because we're living in a day of integrations. How can I get data fast? How can I get quality data? And how can I automate it through a system? Ultimately, when you asked me earlier, 3 words, smarter, not harder, that's really our mantra. What we're trying to do here is realize there's a lot of tasks and a lot of efficiency that's lost in a dealership because people are just walking around doing things, clicking buttons. And so ultimately, that's our goal by having complementing products all around that we can control and we can help the dealer with. We can link them up to empower things like SEO and, again, our e-commerce product, which we've also built on our own. So I'd say that's one of the strategic advantages, having a DMS, and particularly what we do, we feel well, or what we focus on.
Yeah. No, especially for smaller dealerships who are trying to scale with limited staff. You mentioned business workflows and reporting and the website. It makes me think, if somebody just signed up with you, a brand new dealer, they wouldn't even realize how many things you guys are solving, because having a website in the same spot, not having to worry about the integrations, that's so much development work that is foregone just because you guys provide those things. Outside of the things that you've already mentioned, are there any other major pain points that DX1 solves that somebody might not even be aware of?
Yeah, as you guys can probably see talking to me already in the beginning, I'm a bit of an operational guy. I can do everything. I like to say I can do everything in a dealership, but love focusing on operations, because no matter how good your inventory is or how all good your departments are, if they don't know how to interact and coordinate and make sure that they're supporting each other, you're just not going to see those high gain benefits or that scaling a business may work for. In my time here with other product managers, I do want to say that I'm just one of multiple product managers we have here. So most of the stuff we do as a team, I want to make sure our customers know, and of course you guys know, that's one of the focuses we do. From that side, we've worked as a team to come together to focus on that communication aspect. So we've designed what we call the Smart Assistant. And it's really tools that we're expanding on as we continue to grow. And some examples of those are my first big job outside of working at the parts counter, where I really learned about dealership business more than anything, was I moved out from Tennessee back out to California in early 2000 and got a job with the San Luis Motorsports, which was the biggest dealership I had worked in. I'd only really worked in one before that. And they had a shipping receiving position. And that's when I really learned they had 6 brands, wholesalers up and down the coast, with some real business compared to what I was used to. And communication was huge in that job, not only with customers shipping and receiving, because as their parts are coming in, you're supposed to be contacting them to let them know. Your wholesalers, your third-party businesses, which were very large with the Pismo Dunes right there. And everybody with a rental company with an ATV is buying and fixing parts from you. Their businesses are running. Your service department, I always considered from the parts side, our service department a customer like anybody else, et cetera. And so I found over time, they had a really good process in for communicating, but during that process, we lost somebody. As you do, you have turnover, and it just made some of the process really fast. And that's been a case in my consulting over the years and working in different dealerships, is really trying to understand how to have a good process in place that's consistent, how to train people, and then how to deal with it when those people go. And that's a little bit like a Rubik's Cube to me after all these years, even consulting for dealers. It's not about the
Sure.
dealership, how you manage and train your people. So in our system, one of the things we've tried to do is build in this smart assistant. In our system, you have the options to configure automatic communications with your customers around things like special orders. When you think about back in the day, I like to say it that way, I was getting paid probably $10 an hour to sit there, and I'd spend 3 to 4 hours calling customers at a big business like that. It's $40 a day, do the math on that, 200 a
Yep.
week, 800 a month, and you start playing the sport. So that's an example in our system where you can configure it. And when those parts get received, it automatically sends a professional message to the customer, to their phone.
Cool.
The minute you hit receive, it stores in the customer records. You have a communication change. I don't know what dealer hasn't dealt with somebody saying, why didn't you let me know my parts were here? And even if you did your part, you're not going to want to argue with your customers. So
Right.
little things like that can empower you not only from the front side of, hey, I communicated with my customer. It gives me some assets to work with when I have to make decisions about how things are happening. And again, we do that with things like canceled and back order parts. There's nothing more frustrating than working on your own equipment, ordering stuff, expecting it only to find out that one piece you need for the
Sure.
weekend or something got
Absolutely.
mid. And that
Right.
communication type stuff, again, works. Your customers can really change the way you impact. So again, we've built tools that send real-time notifications when certain things happen, like back ordered or canceled parts or low inventory. And we've also designed them internally. So the same thing happens for the service department when the parts department's receiving parts, it's sending them notifications in real time, letting them know things have been partially done, completely received, again, back ordered. We do the same thing in the parts department. We have a bunch of tools that let them know when certain things are happening. And the great part about the tools, they're all call to actions. It's easy to make a checklist. Hey, this is done. But we built it in for managers. So when the action gets done by the employee, it removes itself. So it's not just a
Nice.
checklist. Hey, I did this and check it. As a manager, as an owner, you can really look at the vitals happening in your dealership. And for me, where I like to usually end this introduction to this product when I'm talking to people about it, it can eliminate the service department saying your parts department, nobody told me my parts were here. That
That's
is
huge.
like the way of the dinosaur with this tool. And that's just one example of many things within the dealership that our smart tools do. We have worked hard on trying to find out how automation impacts the dealership. And now with some of the great AI technology we have, we're starting to take that and even to see how we can embed it into that technology. So again, we're really trying to focus on the things that can put money back in the dealer's pocket now.
That's
You
awesome.
still got to go out and sell something. We can give you tools, but you got to go sell it.
That's right.
This is efficiency, proficiency. So if we can help you there, that's the easiest money to put in a dealership's pocket.
100%. Then they can concentrate more on training their staff and doing the important things, making sure that this is done.
What's up, One Gang? I used to think that if I spent big money on riding gear with a logo on the back, I was getting top quality. I gave Leather Up a shot. I wasn't sure at first, could I really get quality gear without spending a fortune? But after putting tens of thousands of miles on their jackets and vests, I had my answer. No busted zippers, no loose stitching, just solid, well-made gear that lasts. Leather Up carries trusted brands like Milwaukee Leather, Hot Leathers, and more, with gear for every rider and every budget. Plus, their customer service actually cares and picks up the phone, something rare these days. So do yourself a favor, check out leatherup.com. Whether you need jackets, vests, chaps, boots, helmets, or luggage, they've got you covered. And because you're part of the One Gang Worldwide family, use code CW20 at checkout for 20% off your entire order. Stop overpaying, gear up with Leather Up, and see the difference yourself.
From your experience of visiting a lot of the dealerships, what department needs the most help normally in a dealership?
Boy, that can be a two-horse race. It's usually between the parts and the service departments.
Parts and service.
I tend to
that's
see,
the lack of communication in between, correct?
yeah, I'd say the parts department at a photo finish wins. because they have the sheer responsibility of managing the part inventory, which can really cause breakdowns in every which way when inventory gets off, and it will impact the service department, which inevitably is impacting your end customer. So definitely, I think the parts departments always have the most work, always have the most difficulties, uphill battles when it comes to running clean.
Interesting. So you've seen both sides. How important is it for dealers to actually use their CRM and not just pay for it and let it be a digital paperweight?
Yeah, boy, that's the bane of all our DMSs or any software products existence from time, is dealers in general still don't have a great way to get outside of that little box. A lot of time they're just using it for the basic invoicing. That's one thing we're really trying to do with DX1. We have a pretty robust process to try to get you off to the right start. I find dealers and maybe users with software, again, I know more about software, but it's still in one sector. I've not worked in software outside of the industry. But
Mhm.
in my experience in 5 years doing both now, the story's a bear cub that imprints on a cheetah or something like that. Their first experience tends to be what they carry forward.
Right.
Because when you go live with the DMS, it's hard to shut down. It takes time to train. You're breathing through a fire hose, no matter who's training you. You're trying to get people to give up old habits. And in the middle of that, they're not going to be happy with all this transition, good or bad. And so what we try to do is just work hard with the teams to imprint some good basic practices. And at the same time, give the flexibility for the dealership to run their business the way they want. I may, or our company may think there's a right or wrong way to do something, but ultimately we're here to support what the customer needs, not what
Yeah.
we tell them we think is right. And again, that's one of the things we try to focus on here.
That's
And
awesome,
it's a
man.
case by case
Yeah, for
basis.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are you most proud of in the work you've done with DX1 so far?
Boy, I think it's really bringing more of our internal teams together. My mentor, my direct supervisor, he's been awesome. He's taught me so much. And one of the first things we talked about is remembering that the product is more than the software. People of our company, the things we do, how we interact with our customers, as much of the product as anything else. At least for my contribution, I'm pretty proud that I think in the time we've been here, we've been able to learn more about what it is we do internally. It's natural for any business to maybe get modules over here or groups of people or departments, if you will. And
Right.
again, you heard me talk about the same thing in the dealership. What's one of our things we like to tell? It shouldn't be hard to start to see the connections between, regardless what you're doing, good communication and understanding what the other people are really needing and what they're doing is key. So I'd say hopefully that's the one thing I could do from the product side of things, more from the DMS to what we've done with our customers. Again, I think if anything, it's making our software easier to use. It's not always about the feature. Nobody's perfect. And if it took 11 clicks to do something in a main workflow and we can narrow it down to 5, it may not seem like a big deal, but over again, 5 days, 4 weeks, 1 year, 7 years, you could talk about 250,000 clicks,
Absolutely.
which is a lot
Right.
when you add it all up. Again, when I'm talking heavily about efficiencies and proficiencies in a dealership.
Yeah. It's fascinating. Let's get into the human side a little bit, the dealer connections that you've made and the industry insight that you've gained from it. So you've met hundreds of dealers. What separates the great ones from the ones who are constantly struggling or maybe just not meeting their potential?
For me, it's they treat their business like a business. You have guidelines and some operating manuals, and you have somebody who
SOPs.
has some general business practices. A lot of times we can see dealers who get into this business, but maybe they haven't owned a business yet, or it's a different thing from being a manager, a general manager. I've never been an owner of a store. I don't know
Mm,
what it's like to be in the owner's shoes. I think that's definitely one of the challenges that we run into from that side.
Yes,
gotcha.
very good.
Cool.
Justin, if a dealer listening right now thinking, I don't have time for all this tech, what would you say to them?
I'd say you're losing money. The reality is your competitors are using this tech, and the tools that are available in the tech, whether they elect to use them all or not, are simply going to be better than what you have. You're just all the way down to the things of your printed invoices, managing your inventory. they're going to be selling while you're going to be clicking around spreadsheets. And if you're
Right.
running that business that way, again, even if you feel like you're doing well, you're going to hit a glass ceiling when it comes to scaling, because you won't be able to manage it. It'll start to work against you and it'll stop you from growing. And I think dealers get stuck right at that threshold where it's difficult to think about taking all that hard in or earned profit and start turning it into another expense. That
Yeah.
graduation when, okay, but that's what happens in a business. We should have more expenses as we grow, and how to control them and choose them is another story. So again, I think that's the main difference to me, is there's somebody within the dealership that really focuses on running the business, not necessarily the operations of the dealership.
Right.
Yeah. No, this is off the record, off script here, but I just had this thought. The booming of AI happening right now. Obviously, when I'm in working on our Instagram or whatever else, I see ads, sponsored ads from different companies, and there are these AI startups that are popping up left and right and trying to get people's attention. And it's fun to look at those. I'll go in and investigate what they have, what their abilities are, and then they've got zero reviews. There's zero talk about them. And I think it's probably good for people to be aware, especially dealers, that they're going to be targeted with those things, and then click in and they don't have the structure, the years of building that a company
Capabilities
like
to handle
DX1
it.
has. Yeah. So they
Yeah.
just kind of guess, point and shoot.
Yeah. I find with retail businesses, I don't want to single out power sports dealers. Everybody's always looking for an easy button. Even if you're running your business, who wouldn't want an easy button, right? But I
Right.
think when people are struggling, they look for that. It's not even an easy button. It's that get out of jail for free button, a parachute. They're free falling.
Yeah.
It isn't,
Yeah.
hey, I want to get better. It's, oh no, I didn't plan this or do that. With AI, just like when e-commerce is really becoming a thing, I need e-commerce. I need e-commerce. And they really do. They install it, they pay for it, they get it set up, and next morning they're not wondering why their store is sold out. But again, it's a matter of competing against all that technology. And again, that can come down just to your SEO work.
Yep.
Right? Your e-commerce,
Absolutely.
all that work. So again, that's trying to educate those dealers. Now, from the AI perspective, yeah, I think there's going to be some unrealistic expectations and
Yep.
some pretty costly mistakes for dealers
Yeah.
with AI.
Agreed.
In terms of just using it as a general person. I consider myself a power user, and I started this 2 years ago knowing that this product, this technology was going to work it into our software, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. So I really,
Yep.
as I try to do with most stuff, is I always start from the front end of it. Let me understand it as a user first, and then work my way back to what we do on the tech side. And look,
Yeah.
the reality is today, from my opinion, it's a fancy Wikipedia at the moment still. It can do some really good things at times and have some really good information. And a term you'll hear if you watch talking heads around AI, and it's a technical term, is it really likes to hallucinate. And anybody who's tried to do a task has experienced this,
Absolutely.
on a particular AI machine. So again, it's difficult, I think, for all of us as this is booming. Same thing with that industry right now, to understand how it really is going to work in. And look, again, the technology is great. And you could say technology meaning not just the physical technology, but the idea being technology. How
Yeah.
willing is it to be adopted within our industry? Again,
Right.
I would generally say in adoption terms, technical terms, our industry can be a bit laggard.
Yeah.
Meaning we're some of the latest to adopt technologies. I still talk to people today that say, I don't trust computers. Like this static thing sitting at your desk has something against you. And that's really, again, a challenge of the end user with AI ultimately trying to decipher, was this junk in or junk out? I
Right.
like to tell people at the moment, AI is great as an assistant, helping clean up some grammar, reformatting. It's good to get the Wikipedia side of things. If you like to play with it and do designs, it's great. As far as incorporating it into your business and just hanging your hat on it,
Yeah.
everybody has some time to go. But it's coming back. We all know how fast it's moving.
I love that,
Right.
man.
Absolutely. That segues really well into the next question. How do you see the future of power sports industry changing as younger, more tech savvy buyers come in?
Yeah, I think you're going to see not only tech savvy buyers, but you're going to see our companies having more tech savvy employees as well. You should have a good merge of people who are wanting to evolve and go from that laggard state. And what we're really looking for are early adopters. And I think that's what we're starting to talk about. These people who embrace the technology are looking for the change. And so I think that there will be a lot of change coming from both sides,
Yeah.
but it's still going to take some time. Our
Sure.
industry still has a core base that really founded the industry. And over the last 5 years, looking at industry statistics, you're starting to see a tremendous amount of buy sells. These people who built family businesses off these dealerships, maybe thinking their kids or somebody would want to come in and run this business, it may not necessarily appeal to them right now. And that's because maybe the lack of technology, the
Yeah.
difference between the
Good point.
generations trying to decide how this business is going to move forward. And that's no different than anything in life, not just the
Right.
power sport side of thing when you're potentially maybe running a family business. So I think in some ways, I have a local dealer of ours here that's somewhat going through this process right now, where over the last year and a half, their son has really taken over the ownership role with two of his sisters,
Cool.
and they're doing a really great job. And it's great from my side because they are adopting more tools and more technology that we offer. I think back to your original question, it's exciting because I think they value certain tools, or at the very minimum are more exploratory in software.
Yeah,
They're not
definitely.
afraid to click buttons and find out what happens if I do this, because it's just something they're more comfortable with.
That's cool.
Excellent.
Cool.
Great
Yeah, for
answer.
sure. Let's dream a little bit. How do you see the digital marketplaces and dealer software working together in the next few years?
Yeah, AI is that big question mark because I think everybody has some pretty brilliant ideas at the moment. It'd be really great if it could do this. It could be really great if it did that. I think from the e-commerce on the marketing side of things, you're going to see advances in making it easier to find products as a consumer. Just think about what Amazon and the way these big businesses today, we're not going to be reinventing any wheels in our industry as a product side. We have product leaders in our market doing retailing at a large side that are going to really set the precedent for our customers, our dealers, their consumers. That's really who's expecting a certain type of experience. And so I think you're going to see more customized experiences as a consumer. If it's linked up to the dealership and it has product and you're coming to look for items, it may be able to do a lot more customization versus static pages and moving and suggesting, but it may be able to build you an experience catered to you, a lot more smarter to what it is you're trying to do. On the dealership side, we've introduced our first customer facing AI product a couple months ago, which in our system today, and it's an example how I think AI will probably be used best first, which is to take an existing process and just make it better versus you trying to use AI in the beginning to reinvent the wheel and go from zero to the moon overnight, which isn't going to happen.
Right.
And then again, with AI as a general term known, it can hallucinate across the industry. We want to make sure for providing those tools, there is some guards and some good quality data.
Right.
So our first start was with fact-based information. We work with many of our partners to get promotions. They provide us all their brochures and model data. And we have a tool called a sales assistant where somebody can go in and if they're desking you or sitting down and asking questions, you could look up a model, but it's real click driven. You got to go to a page. You got to select a manufacturer, a year, type the model you're looking for, hit a search button. You're going to get a big list. And then when I get a list, I got to click into that. And then I got to sit there and read it. All this while I got a customer in front of me. So we've taken all that data and we've put it into an AI tool that allows you just to ask those things in natural questions and even do things after the fact. So go in and somebody comes in, typical, I like talking about the youth experience, the people who don't know what they're looking for per se and need good guidance. So people who are looking at things like seat height. You can just go in natural language now and just ask, what's the seat height of a TTR 110? And we prompted it to where it'll tell you that, and it'll start to tell you some information, key factors on the bike, models like colors.
That's so awesome.
Then it can prompt them as some questions they might want to ask next. Guarantee you, if somebody's asking about seat height, they're going to be asking about weight. This is a kid's bike, entry level. So it continues to feed on. And then you could ask it, does this unit have a promotion? Something you'd normally have to go to a binder in our system and look up on a different page. And then you can ask it to do comparisons. Okay, they're trying to compare me to a CRF 110. Can you tell me the differences? It'll tell you your weak points, your strong points, what you're being compared against, and what, again, you should focus on if you're the selling Yamaha dealer, things like that. You can get trade. So again, it's really taking that information and putting it in the dealer's hands, something they already have today, but again, just making it more efficient. Not 15 clicks where somebody has to interpret something differently. And again, to go back to this turnover thing, a little bit about training, which we brought up just once or twice about turnover and things, or I have already. It's also become a fabulous training tool because a lot of time training goes like this. I bring you into my dealership and you don't know a bunch about Yamahas, and somebody comes in to ask questions. You're in my office for every question. What about this? Is this two-stroke? You're coming in and out. And it's also difficult for me if I'm running a dealership off of a tight ship to just say, okay, let's go ahead and train for the next week. But that's just the reality of the dealership. So even with this tool, particularly from the sales side, I can sit you down and say, train. It's training. Ask it questions. It's going to prompt you. Again, I think that's going to be a direction we start to look at in the future. It comes how AI will implement in. But again, one of the main things everybody's going to be concerned about too is privacy and data security. You really want to use AI with your business, it's going to have to connect to your business data. So just like you else have in this world, at least from our perspective, we're definitely going to walk before we run, because ultimately being a software provider with data security is our number one factor. And one
big
thing
liability,
which is DX1 from any other DMS, is that our dealers own their data. And that was a purposeful decision that was designed way up front, is because we want our dealers to know that their data is not going to be sold. And as we continue to work with OEM partners, which we do, it gives them the security that their data is not going to be sold. And that's really important because that data is confidential, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the main aspects we're trying to make sure we're sensitive with, is to make sure that data stays protected in the right way.
Wow,
So
Justin,
I think that's going to be the challenge moving forward with implementing AI into data-driven systems.
Justin, sorry to interrupt. Just a quick. So you're saying there's actual CRM companies out there now that basically own the dealer's inventory?
They don't own the physical inventory, but they own the data. So if a company came to a DMS and said, hey, we'd like to see all the retail sales data for a particular manufacturer, that company could have the right to sell it to them because the DMS owns your data. You don't as a dealer. And dealers really, I never really thought of it from this point until I started working at DX1 and started understanding why that's important. So yeah, I don't think most dealers really know or think of it that way, that my data is being sold. Like, many of them may not care. So what? You sold my data. So what? But the reality is they could have sold it to your competitor.
That's right.
Or a product helping your competitor compete against you. So that's a very important distinction with DX1, is that our dealers own all their data.
Gotcha.
That is very wise of you guys to make that a true pillar of business.
No doubt.
And you mentioned it. I was thinking about how cool it is to empower the salesman, and how that is such a great thing for the industry in general, because it's a total win-win. You've got even experienced salesmen maybe don't realize if somebody's asking about the seat height, they're also going to want to know about the weight. You might also want to consider the weight of the bike. You might consider the positioning of the handlebars and this and that and the other thing, that maybe that conversation never would have happened. And you're also presenting things to the potential buyer that they might not even be aware could be really important to them, and could also solidify that sale along with the experience. That's a big deal.
Yeah, and that's what I talked about earlier is my favorite part, which is excites me about this tool, is of course people need to want to learn. But there's nothing better as a consumer and as a salesperson knowing you know what you're talking about, especially if you haven't had a real chance to experience the actual riding of a motorcycle, which is a large percentage of the people. And I'm the same thing. I've ridden motorcycles my whole life, but I haven't gone out and rode a Raptor 700. I can't speak firsthand about what this feels like, and that feels, at least being able to have a good knowledge about the product is really important, at least so they know they're getting good, honest information. And that goes a long way. It is often overlooked in a dealership.
Oh my gosh, think about how cool it is. Some people complain about the riding position. Some people think that it's perfect for them. Pointing out, being able to give feedback on the bike that you haven't ridden before, that's really cool. So when you take your test drive, pay attention to this and this and make sure it's the right fit for you so that you're leading that person to the right bike, not just a sale. That's
Yeah. Hey, if you think about it, you said test drive. I'd say 75% of the product that you may sell is something somebody cannot test drive.
That's right.
So that confidence factor to say, okay, what's going to make me finally pull that wallet out of my pocket on something that is completely unknown to me?
yeah.
Again, it comes with that consumer confidence. And I found, and this could be a tip for people in the dealership world, it's always budget driven. Because I guess maybe I felt familiar to seeing families come in who maybe couldn't afford everything, but they wanted to introduce motorcycles or off-road riding in some way to their life. I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many times somebody comes in and they were going to buy a unit and they just don't have much money for the stuff after they start realizing, geez, I'm going to need a fuel can. Boy, I'm going to need
Right.
gear for the kids. I'm a loading
Right.
ramp. What's up? What are you going to tie it down with?
Right.
You got chain lube and all this type of stuff. So again, I think helping people focus on what's going to be most important for the type of unit they have when it comes to product. I'd love to sell them a $2,000 titanium exhaust if they have $2,000 extra, but I would tell them I would put it in a good quality helmet. I would
Yeah.
make sure that I have a
Gear.
leather jacket,
Yep. Good
gloves,
gear.
boots.
That's right.
Yeah, and I'd make sure I have the gloves and boots before I have the pants. That's the reality of things. I want you to have everything, but you're still going to leave my dealership with this unit. And I always try to think to myself, if that was my brother, my sister, my kid, my wife,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
were going to leave, the only money you have is $100 extra. Buy the best $100 helmet you can get. So again, I think it's understanding how to cater that experience well to that buyer is what's going to help people, again, pull out that wallet. And that just comes from training and confidence,
That's
right?
right.
We have to be confident. We have to be professional and be able to answer things to consumers in a fast way. And again, hopefully that's where AI will really help us in training as time goes on.
That's right.
Absolutely. So here's a fun question for us. And we'd ask this even if we weren't building what we're building. If DX1 could build a perfect partnership ecosystem, what would that look like? And what role do you think platforms like ours, like Cycles Worldwide, would play in that?
Yeah. Okay. I definitely think that's where we're going to, this ability to constantly connect. I think that's what dealers are going to have to really, I don't even know if adopt's the right word, that suggests that there's some option there. But the reality is through companies like yours, the DMSs, the manufacturers, it's a collective now. Again, this is one of the upsides of being a dealer within DX1. You might have a dealer that wants your data, and that's not a bad thing. I think I've had this conversation many times with dealers that this mistrust against the man. I think I'll use that word for a minute because the man just symbolizes something against me, a death card down. Yeah, not the government. I don't mean it like that. But let's just say this metaphorical, the man, is that the people who are selling me product are wanting my data for a nefarious reason. They're going to want to shut me down because I don't do this or something like that. That's my data. So with DX1, we do have partners that are looking for those types of integrations. And with DX1, even if they're partners of ours, all our partners understand it has to be signed off for by the dealer. And again, I think that's what we have a lot of people as they're trying to grow into this topic, that we're one of the places that offers still a little bit more control over whether you can be automatically enlisted in a program.
Right.
Now, that manufacturer may not let you continue to be a manufacturer if you don't sign and agree in the first place. But in the end, I think that's what dealers are really going to have to understand, is that having all these platforms connected in one place is really important. That's what we're hearing from our dealers right now, is being the hub that operates the business, is I don't want to go to all these third party sites to try to operate my business. And using APIs and using the technology we have now as we work with partners allows us to make that transition a little easier to, one, signing up with third parties and then getting them interconnected within one system. You have what you do. This company may have something they do over here, and it's still all triggering off the same type of data. I think the second part of that is dealers being comfortable with understanding this is a good thing.
Absolutely.
It's a good thing for you, because it's like going to the dentist. A lot of people don't like it. You put it off. The more you put it off, the worse it gets. And there ain't no way you're fixing it yourself. You can get all the whiteout toothpaste you want. It ain't going to
Yeah.
happen. So I think from this side, understanding that the manufacturers may be able to help you avoid cavities in the future. As a dealer, there's no worse of a problem than early in a buying season, a manufacturer, distributor, brand comes in and they want to give you a dating process. Load up now for something you're going to get in 6 months. And you know why? Because they're doing the same thing you're doing. They're playing guessing games. How much should we make? How much should we sell? And if you don't have all that data connected, it's really difficult for both the dealers to say, hey, you flooded me with too much product. I still got a bunch sitting here. Everybody's got it. We're pricing it out. And ultimately having some situations in the business that are not helpful. So I think moving forward, if the dealers are more open to connecting with their manufacturers, with these particular vendors, to share their inventory levels, to share their data, their retail sales data, because they are offering a lot of great programs to help them out. I'm not going to say that dealers still won't feel like they're being flooded product, because ultimately a manufacturer is trying to sell dealerships product. That's what they do. But I think COVID has forced some traditional models to be reevaluated in terms of just flooding dealers with product. Flooring is going to be an issue. Interest rates are high. Again, things normalized after COVID. Dealers still have a lot of product sitting on their floors, things like that. So I think from this side, again, those manufacturers having access to that data will just make the whole process from head to toe more efficient. And then they can start putting in more programs like automatic fulfillment.
That's right.
Hey, if I trust my company and we're working off the data and we agree with it, that's something that will assist me. Stuff will just show up at my dealership. And that's much more of an experience I've encountered the few times I've dipped out of the power sports world. We're still so behind the way other businesses work. So I think that's the interconnected between all the businesses. It's just getting one nice ecosystem. And ultimately, I have a feeling I know as the DMS, we're going to be that pivot point.
That's cool. Let me ask you this. Looking back at your motocross days, your dealership days, and now your DX1, what's been your wow, I am where I'm supposed to be moment?
There's been a couple that make one moment to me. When I remember standing we had a server closet at Folsom Lake Yamaha. And this is right back in 06, 07. And I remember standing there with the current owner at the time and another person who's part of the company still today. His name's Lou Pedler. He's a product manager within our ecosystem. Standing in a closet while we're working in the dealership, and Curtis, who was the founder of the product, looked and said, we can do this and we can do it better. And it was interesting because I had told him I was getting ready to go back to get my degree. I'd already made a decision to transition, just something I needed to do at that time. And he still sent me a laptop because he loved me and said, hey, do what you can do. And I didn't really do much with it. And that was right around 08 or 09. The way I ended up in Bozeman was not predicted. It was a bit of my kids moved out. Hey, what's this empty nesting going to look like? That was a big leap of faith that led me up there. It's not something I would normally do. The fact that my wife got offered the job in Tennessee, that brought me out of there to the interview. And then here I am now, almost right around 20 years later, I'm interviewing for this company. But I stood in the back of a little tiny closet saying, somebody can do this. I can't take any credit for what they did or where they got. But in terms of, hey, I'm in the right place at the right time, that was an interesting moment. I had another one not too long ago. Back in my early days, I worked for the KTM Red Bull race team. Nice. That was the first non-dealership job I had because I knew I wanted to be in the industry and I wanted to do maybe something more than just be in the dealership. So I was able to work with them, and I started with them on October 17th. And it wasn't until I had realized when I was visiting KTM to do some training with them right around that same time that it was almost exactly 25 years to the date that I started with KTM that I was standing in their building, and it had dawned on me that was the same date that I started with DX1.
Damn.
Take some odd,
right. Meant to be.
Next October, I'm going to buy a lottery ticket off that day.
Yes, dude.
It's really interesting. And I'll tell you the other thing too, is I didn't expect to be here. I went and got a degree as a social geographer. I have a minor in photography, a certificate in Latin American affairs. I'd really planned to.
And you can't seem to get out of the power sports industry.
People, yeah. Like I said, even at the time when I had got called to go up to Bozeman, and in my minor doing photography, I'd stumbled into wedding photography, which is
Yeah.
fairly lucrative and doesn't take much time. And again, I like to let the world pull me where it goes. I like to make some brave decisions. I think they're brave at times with a family to up and quit a really good job and decide to go back
Yep.
to school
For
and
sure.
et cetera. So for me, here we sit talking
Yeah.
about passion, talking about
Awesome.
motorcycles and the things we do. And that's why I know this is where I'm at.
And you helping others
Cool.
to get better at their own craft and help them make more money and help others put smiles on their faces by moving units. So it's a full circle, man. It's cool.
Yeah, and that education component really played in well. It's not the way I thought I would use it, but I'm still able to apply it in a way I wanted
That's
to.
right.
So that's definitely super rewarding to be able to help people.
That's fulfilling. It sounds like your wife is pretty awesome. It sounds like she's empowered you to make decisions and been walking along your side through it thick and thin. So that's huge, as a lot of folks know how important that is.
Yeah, it's everything.
Here's a tricky question. What is one mistake that you learned more from than any success could have ever taught you?
That there's always another way to do something. As a problem solver, in general, I feel like that kind of suits me as a description over most of my life. I like solving problems and things like that. And it's
too.
something that I still learn every time I talk to a dealer, that everybody has their own lens on life, their own lens on
Right.
how things should go. They live within their moral bounds. There's a certain amount of socialization to a geographic location. That's the reality. We all grow up a certain way.
That's right.
And I think it's easy to see that world in just one way. And again, I mentioned to you that eye opener at Bob's Honda Yamaha, the first time somebody came and asked me for a CV joint bearing. I'm like, what's a CV joint? I know what bearing is. I've only had to change them a few times on a dirt bike, and now here I got a line at the counter for people asking for things like that. And it's also, in that same breath, watching good managers and bad managers. I would be lying if I didn't say there's probably times I've not been a good manager because I was thrust into manager positions, I feel like, at a young age. People see that thing. There's that, oh, he's good with spreadsheets, or he's good with inventory, he's good for that. But I was
Must be a good
motorcycle
manager.
racer. Yeah. So probably a bit aggressive at times with people and not as patient. And one of the biggest things I've tried to learn over time, and it was introduced to me again by the founder in the dealership, is just learning compassion. That was something I lacked, I think, especially at that time, because it was about being driven to succeed at all costs.
Yeah.
Type of mind. And the world is a competitive place. I think there's a pressure to feel that a lot of times, and it's hard to step back. But I think as a growth as a person and as a manager, and I still practice it today, making sure that I have this not right type of emotional IQ, but am I keeping an eye on my emotional IQ? All of us can really control that. And so that's something I learned from my team members today. And that's been the great experience of working with DX1, is as much as I have to manage the product, this is really the first time in many years that I've been managed. In my process, people hire you because they don't know what to do, and they're like, just go fix it. There's not too much overlap. So that's definitely, again, learning. There's ways to learn. And then that helps me understand it from a different perspective. Again, what somebody in a dealership would be going through.
Yeah.
So
100%.
And that question is a gamble, because you never know how transparent or open somebody's going to be when they answer it. So thank you very much for being transparent and vulnerable enough so that the rest of us can learn from those same mistakes you've encountered.
Yeah, 100%.
That's a great
Well, yeah,
answer, man.
yeah, and I want to add, that's where dealers get in trouble in the dealership. Somebody has an idea and they're so sure it's going to work, and I've been there, and it just doesn't quite land. That can be okay. Being able to learn from those instances, being able to look at yourself and say, I'm not going to get it right all the time, and how can we constantly improve? I think that's something that seriously lacks from the dealership when it comes to operations.
Maybe don't try to and hold on to it too long and try to force it for too long, and just realize when it's smart to cut ties on an idea or a project.
Yeah, you can't be afraid to fail. You got to be smart. You have to be strategic. You're constantly going to have to evolve, especially when you're in an industry where your managers turn over. Everybody's going to come in with a management style. And I think that's another piece of advice, if I can tack it to the back of this, which I think makes dealers distinguish from other dealers, is if your store as an owner does not have an identity and a set process, These are the dealers I'm telling you that tend to lack that business side. They got into it and now they're at the mercy of the people that they're hiring. It's all in somebody's head. Or, hey, yeah, that works. It's good. You get lucky out of the gate. You got 3 people working together. You lose a manager. The next one comes in and you got disruption because they have a whole different idea about the way somebody should be interacting with their department or something, versus a store with a clear-cut operating policy that when you come into our business, this is the way we work. And I think that's what really is lacking, and it's frustrating as an employee, right? You could be great with this manager, and now you got this new manager, and then there's a trickle effect. So you lost your manager, it was looking good. You may have one that's going to do better, but then you might have a ripple on effect that you might lose your parts counter people, because as in this industry, people react harshly.
Hey, from
Again, it won't change.
From your experience, percentage wise, where would you say you see operational structure and where you don't see operational structure from you walking into and working with so many dealers across the country?
Well, conservatively, I'd say at least half of our dealers.
Half of your dealers. Wow.
They're really struggling. It's a difficult process because, and it's not that something that they purposely are trying to do themselves.
Of course.
Ultimately, you get stuck in that grind of, you're literally in the cycle. It's so hard to get out of that as an owner or somebody that has that responsibility from, you're not taking any time. That's the reality of it. You may leave your business, but as an owner, your business never shuts down.
That's right.
Especially as somebody, if you have an owner that cares, one would probably lead to think that they're thinking a lot about their employees in the evening too. So again, there's work that you physically do, and then there's that work that we do mentally. How you put a time clock on that. And that can be for any employee.
It's a sleepless nights, that's for sure. Thanks for the on all the questions, man. This has been amazing. Where can dealers reach out to you directly? Where can people listening, if they have questions, reach out to you? What's your best social handles that you like to work with?
Yeah, you'll find DX1 app on social media areas. We have a YouTube channel. If you're trying to get a sense of what we are as a company, you'll find a lot of videos with me. I run on the front. We do a lot of help videos, release videos, things like that. So YouTube's a great channel to find us. You'll get all your links for social media there. We're on LinkedIn. You can find us there. As far as finding out more information about DX1, I think the best place to start is our website. I personally, as a person, don't like talking to people right away when I'm investigating a product. I'm no different than consumers. So if you want to get that feel for a minute, go to DX1, the number 1 app. So DX1app.com. There you can get a sense about what things that make up our product, the different aspects we have. You can schedule a free demo. You can get a call, get some questions answered, anything you need. That's probably the best site if you're interested in learning more about the product.
That's awesome.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Thanks, Justin. This has been awesome.
Yeah,
man.
this has been killer, brother. Killer. Hey, we can keep you on for the next 2 hours, man. This is, I've got so many questions, but we can only cover so much.
Maybe we need a part 2 later. I do want to add, again, one thing in here. I might have touched on it previously when I talked about people being part of our product and it being an important aspect inside. My absolute favorite part of our product to brag about is our support team. And I say this because support is measurable in anything. I don't care who you are today. If you own products, you do some way you're dealing with support, whether it's a bill, whether it's a product, something. And we all know the different types of experiences you can have. And I can speak over many years in this industry, having used some of our competitors' products at different times, that customer service can be lacking at times and be better. I'm not going to single anybody out, but I definitely can tell you that is the absolute best part of our product. Our customers can chat live right inside the DMS with our team. Our full team is located here in Norfolk, Virginia, which is where our company is based out of. Our team is really focused on finding people that worked in the industry or have used our product.
That's cool.
That way, when you're calling in with an issue, it's not just necessarily, hey, do this and do that. They have some context to make sure they know what you're trying to do.
Nice.
So many tickets or so many calls that come in, or this isn't working right when it is. But it goes back to the same old thing. Nobody trained them, and they're just trying to do their best to get to the end solution on something. I just, again, want to reemphasize, as much as we're a software company, my favorite thing is to talk about the people that make up the software, and that we take a little bit more of a partner approach than we're just selling you software.
Just from my limited experience with DMS support, if I were a dealer, you would have just sold me. That support is
No,
huge,
because
and it
support
can
is
make or break an
everything,
experience.
especially these days, man, when you can't talk to anybody, you can't ask questions, then you get frustrated, then you get aggravated with the company that you're using because you can't talk to a real person. No, it's awesome, man. It's awesome.
Or if you do get a hold of somebody, they don't know
Yeah,
what
they're
they're
not
talking
educated
about. And
enough
you
to
know
even
they're
help you. So,
reading off of a script, or let me ask my manager, that kind of stuff.
yeah, man.
That's
Yeah.
That's
And a
cool.
lot
Support
of
is huge.
dealers get caught out. It's a tough job picking a DMS. I went through it
Sure.
before we worked with DX1. And that's the great part of my experience. As the product manager, I've actually been through the experience as a customer on top of it. That's really
Yeah.
what gave me some ideas coming in of ways we can improve. I also feel confident saying that when I'm sitting there talking with a customer and they say, you don't know what it was like doing this, I can say,
Actually, I
it's
do.
like doing it.
Yeah.
And that forges that bond between, again, the user and our product, that we care about them. And that's really
Definitely.
important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right on.
Listen,
Justin, thank you so
yeah,
much.
man.
This
Hey,
has been awesome, man.
congratulations. Justin's daughter's getting married. He's going to be hopefully grandpa in the near future. And
Yeah.
just wanted to congratulate you and we'll wish you the best trip up to Italy, and hopefully everything is smooth and those two have a long life, happy life together, man.
Yeah, they're good kids. We're excited. It'll be fun to spend New Year's in Italy, and we appreciate you
Awesome.
guys having us on. I had a great time too. We'll definitely have to do this again. There's so many great
100%,
topics we
man.
could cover. Eventually, we're all here doing the same thing, trying to help dealers. And ultimately, you got to have good partners. If they're not making money, they can't afford to pay us.
No
So we got to
question.
find ways
Right.
to make them succeed.
And yeah, one of the things I love about our industry, and this is like one of the few being in it for so long, is that we truly are stronger together. The more everybody helps one another, we all do better. And if we're all doing well, the industry's doing well, which means that more people are riding, more people are on ATVs, more people are buying this and golf carts and everything else. So it's awesome, man. Keep up the amazing work. Love your journey, man. Loved your journey. Looking forward to hopefully meeting you soon at one of the trade shows coming up, and safe travels up to into Europe. Okay.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me, guys.
All right,
Appreciate it.
brother.
Thanks, Justin. Be good.